The Frontline starts now.
Yeah!
Coming in on 2-1, over to Bloom, point blank shot, he scores! Bloom! It's all about the boom with that shot!
Say it again, y'all!
Wow, it has been a week since we've recorded the last episode, and what a week it has been. We have a lot of battalion hockey to talk about. We have a lot of local hockey to talk about in general, and we have a big trade to talk about. And thankfully, one of those guys who was involved in that trade is in this episode. But quickly before we introduce him, I'm of course your host Kortney Kenny, and this episode, Matt Sookram's back as my co-host. So welcome back, Matt. And we got a guest here that you've already had a chance to talk to a little bit.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back here on the Frontline podcast and excited to be joined by the newcomer, Josh Bloom. Josh, it's great to have you.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me.
Josh, I got to get down to the nitty gritty right away. Take us through the week that was last week for you, because I'm sure it was pretty hectic. When did you first catch wind that you might not be a Saginaw Spirit anymore?
Yeah, whirlwind of a week to say the least. But we caught wind on Tuesday. Me and Hissy hit the road on Wednesday, and then obviously played Thursday night against Kingston, which was hell of a homecoming in a sense. But yeah, crazy week. Lots of emotions going on. Obviously, heartbroken, leaving a place where I've spent 4 years. That being said, ecstatic to be coming to North Bay and to be a part of something that's pretty special here. So yeah, everything was running through my head. Crazy week, but we're settling in nicely here and excited to kind of take more steps with this organization.
With the trade, I mean, I'm assuming at the beginning of the year when you're named captain of the team, you don't think that a trade's coming. But did you kind of get the sense in the last couple of weeks that you might be moved?
Honestly, no. We were the first place team in the West, so it was kind of a little bit of a blindside. But that being said, like coming to a team that's obviously going for it and adding pieces like myself and Brayden. So we kind of ran into it with open arms and just we're really excited to be here.
Well, I know we're pretty excited to have you here for sure. I know you mentioned it, especially in the article that was written by Matt, but you were a captain in Saginaw. You were an alternate captain last year. Just what does that mean kind of coming into a locker room? And you're not necessarily going to wear a letter here, but what kind of leadership qualities do you bring to this team?
Yeah, I was saying that to Matt. Like, there's a reason that there's 6 alternate captains, and there's a ton of leaders in that room. That being said, you're adding 2 guys in myself and Brayden who come from leadership backgrounds and have developed into good leaders, I'd like to say. So nothing changes for me, whether I wear a letter or not. My day-to-day, my attitude in the room, nothing changes there. And I'm going to bring the same leadership qualities I brought to Saginaw. And nothing changes by a letter on my sweater.
How long of a trip is that to come up here and like get here and ready to go and play Kingston? Like that's got to be quite the road trip.
Yeah, it was a hell of a road trip. I think it's about 7 hours. We got caught in a snowstorm, so add an hour to that. We also stopped with our families halfway, is about right in between me and Brayden's house. So stopped halfway to have dinner with our families and kind of just talk about the whole thing because it did unravel so fast. And so Adam Dennis met us there, kind of gave our families a little rundown of North Bay and everything that it brings to us. And so we sat there for a couple hours. So the trip altogether must have been probably 10 hours. It was a really, really long day, really emotional day, having to say goodbye to our team in Saginaw, and then got a little tour of the facilities when we dropped our bags off and stuff, and it was unbelievable. And then came to meet our billet family, who are unbelievable people as well. So it was a crazy day. And then we had to go play 24 hours later. So really quick turnaround, really happy about our result this weekend and just excited to build off of it.
Must feel really weird. Like you said, you meet your new billet family, then you got the game next day, and then you guys are on the road trip. So you're really getting to know them now after coming back home from Owen Sound.
Yeah, exactly. We were in North Bay for a night and then we hit the road. So this week's going to be good for us to just kind of settle in. And we went to an all-you-can-eat sushi last night, which was unbelievable. And kind of got some time to spend with them and get to know them a little bit more. So we're really, really happy with the spot we're in right now. And like I said, like just the excitement that we're getting from the city, from the organization, just everything that's kind of brewing up right now is super, super awesome to be a part of. And yeah, I can't tell you how excited we are.
And you talked about how that kind of extended to the team, like the excitement around the team. You touched on the fact that you felt like General Manager Adam Dennis and the coaching staff are really building something special here. Now, when you were in Saginaw, did you see what these guys did last year, and did it catch your attention, or was it just once you entered into the organization, it kind of clicked right away?
No, it's hard not to notice it, right? Like North Bay was in a conference final last year, so you can't just turn a blind eye. And so they ran into obviously the soon to be champion Hamilton Bulldogs. But that being said, like they were dominating teams like an Ottawa team, a Kingston team, and then they ran into a Hamilton. But that being said, like three guys left, so you have the same team, and they're just adding more pieces to it, which is awesome. And yeah, like this run we're gonna go on is gonna be something special and something everyone in this room and hopefully the city's gonna remember.
With well, you mentioned the all you can eat sushi. Was it JT Sushi that you went to?
Wasn't JT, I forget the name. It's
Oh,
by
okay.
the Hampton Inn, but yeah,
Okay.
it was damn good.
Because I was gonna say if you went to JT, I wanted to get your review on the robot waiters because those things are weird, man. Like,
I gotta go to JT. I'm a huge, huge sushi guy, so I'm sure I'll find my way there.
yeah,
Nice.
the robot waiters are wild. Like they just come up and they just like almost sing to you. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
I
gotta
don't
get,
care
I
if
gotta
it's
get me that. That'll be crazy.
yeah.
um, Coming to North Bay and kind of integrating yourself in I know you're still working through all of it, but what are some of the things? Because obviously fans look at it and they're excited to get you here. It's almost like Christmas morning, right? Like, oh, new presents, new toys under the tree. We got, two new guys coming from a different team that are, this signals a win now move. But for you guys as people, what challenges does a trade bring?
Definitely getting comfortable quick. Like that's probably the most important thing is to get as comfortable as you can as fast as you can because like we hadn't even practiced before we played. So the guys have done an unbelievable job in helping us transition through that, getting comfortable with everyone and get making those connections within the room. And then like not personally, but people talk about pressure with a trade like you're expected to be the guy. At the end of the day, me and Brayden are both confident in our abilities and if you just trust yourself and kind of go about your days the same as you always have, then the pressure's not really there. So just trusting in yourself and moving forward every single day.
I think it's a big move for this organization to acquire guys like you and Brayden so early. I think it speaks a lot about the league this year and teams trying to figure out where they are. But you're a guy that's coming over with some pedigree. The fact that you are a Buffalo Sabres draft pick, the fact that you're a potential candidate for Canada's World Junior Team. What goes through your mind when these high level organizations are reaching out to you and saying, hey, we're looking at you for this, or we're looking at you for that, and what do they say in terms of what's going to get you to that next level?
Yeah, like you said, like the league doesn't really know where they're at right now. And it speaks volumes about this management group and this team that Adam Dennis went forward with this trade and said, yeah, like this is our group. Like we're ready to go. And so I think that speaks volumes to the confidence that is within this group. So that being said, like this is going to be a championship caliber team. So how could you not be absolutely thrilled to be a part of it? And yeah, like with the rest of the league, like everyone doesn't know where they're at. Like the only thing that matters for us is we know where we're at. And
Hmm.
we're going to be going for a championship and that's a common goal in the room and we were talking about manifesting and this team really likes to manifest things. So having that common goal, everyone's playing for one purpose, I think is super super important within a group. And we know the direction we're going. So yeah, we're thrilled that we get to be a part of this run, but that being said, like the work's right now, and we have to first of all get a division, then a conference, and then work our way towards a championship. So there's lots of work to go. the work's starting right now, and we're getting prepared for that long run that we're going to be a part of.
I think you're part of an interesting uh, class of players, like the literal birth class of players, where you came into the league, got 1 year under your belt, and then went in your draft year without even playing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. What's it been like to just have to find new ways to stay on top of your game, especially during the pandemic? And knowing that it was going to be such a big year for you.
Yeah, exactly. I think first of all, like I've got to experience every part of junior hockey, and now I'm going to experience a championship run. So first of all, putting that aside, I had a rookie year where played on a championship caliber team that was obviously taken away from us. We had a damn good team in my first year, playing fourth line minutes, like 6, 7, 8 minutes a night, and learning how to integrate yourself into a lineup like that really says volumes about where I'm going in my career. Like, I'm not going to be playing first line minutes right off the bat, second line minutes right off the bat. Like, I'm going to have to find a way to make an impact in the game. So playing those minutes in my first year, then going into my second year where I was going to have a really big role on the team and be playing with top end guys like Ryan Suzuki and Cole Perfetti, and like having that chance to be drafted with those two guys on your side is something you couldn't ask for. So that being taken away was a real shot to the heart. But like having trust in yourself, like I said before, understanding the things you're doing, understanding that you're putting the work in every day and that you're working towards something, I think was the biggest thing for me. Like just understanding like the gym's gonna matter right now. Like everyone else may take a couple weeks off. Like I need to get in there. I need to do my thing. And Buffalo did their homework on me. I was skating out of Hamilton, Ontario, and teams were coming in and out, and kind of talking to a bunch of teams because we had no idea where I was going to go, whether I was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So Buffalo did their homework really well on me, like I said in our other interview, and I like to think they made a good choice and just continue to do my thing. At the end of the day, it doesn't change whether there's COVID, whether you're here or there. Like my day to day is the exact same. My day to day is there so that I can be a great pro one day. So that doesn't change throughout my routine. And right now, just working towards getting the body ready for a big playoff run, like I said.
How, on a personal note, though, I mean, to still get drafted by Buffalo after not playing any competitive hockey, like in the OHL or anything for a year, how satisfying or gratifying is that to be like, I didn't even play a game and they still took me in the top 100?
Yeah, it just shows the trust level they had in me, and super appreciative of that. But like I said, like I like to think they made a good choice, and so like not playing, like I think the biggest thing for me is like I deserve to be drafted there, so I got to play that way. I can't be like, oh, like thanks so much for drafting me at that position. I gotta own it in a sense, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, just go again, like back to what I was saying, going into my third year. Now you've gone from a rookie who plays 6, 7, 8 minutes a night to being the guy on a team. And so I was lucky enough to be named an assistant captain, and that brought a lot of challenges within itself because I've never manned a locker room before. Like, and thank God we had Cameron Baber, our captain at the time, who really took me under his wing and kind of showed me the ropes a little bit and helped me through that process of developing into a good leader because it obviously doesn't happen overnight. But yeah, and then and at the start of this year, going into my fourth year, I kind of took the reins a little bit and was named captain. Appreciative of that, and that again, it brought a lot of challenges, but a lot of satisfying moments as well. And just continuing to develop as a leader every single day. And I think developing as a leader helps you develop as a man and as an individual as well. So couldn't be more thankful for my 3.5 years in Saginaw. They really changed my life, changed me as a person, and developed me like the OHL said. They're developing hockey players, but they're all also developing men. So yeah, Saginaw did exactly that, and I'm just pumped with kind of how my junior hockey career has gone, and then looking to capitalize on it now in my fourth year.
You touched on this in our other interview, and I wrote about it on Bay today. But you said you told Adam Dennis that Hislop might be the real jewel of this trade. What I mean, we saw it in his first game in North Bay that he's a difference maker on the blue line. What, if you're looking at him and you're scouting him, what is it about him that makes him so good out there, and how valuable is he going to be to this team?
He's just a competitor. He hates to lose. I think he every day with him is a battle. And I think that comes from the way he's come into the league. Like he was playing junior B last year. Saginaw scouted him out of junior B, made a trade with Owen Sound, brought him to Saginaw. Then he
Hmm.
comes to Saginaw playing 6, 7, 8 minutes a night and just refused to stop working and made our coach play him. And that just says volumes about who he is as a person and what he brings to this organization. He ups practice every single day, which is huge. It makes everybody around him better. And then just in games, just an ultra competitor, hates to lose, will not lose that puck. And that's something you need on a deep run. And it's the perfect pickup for a team. And he goes out there, eats minutes, makes other guys want to hate going on the ice against him. Like
Hmm.
it's exactly what you need on your back end when you have a guy like Nelly who can handle the offensive brunt of it. Not saying that Hissy can't. Hissy's a great offensive player, but he's gonna make your life hell when you step on the ice with him.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the one thing I noticed his first couple of shifts in, when him and Ty Nelson were out there and they were in the offensive zone. Um, they couldn't get the puck out. Like, it was Kingston, right? Yeah, that was the Kingston game. And every time they tried to clear the puck on Brayden's side, he was just like getting along the boards or going down to a knee to make sure, like looking like a shortstop out there, making sure the puck stays in front of him. And it was just like, why does Kingston keep trying to clear the puck on that side? Like, it's not working. And it was amazing to watch. And those are the things that don't show up in the score on the score sheet. But the fact that he can continue that cycle game and keep the puck in the offensive zone just drains the opposition.
Exactly, and I guarantee you he would have eaten that puck if he had to. Right on the blue line, he would have taken it off the face just to make a play. Like he's that competitive as a person. It's contagious. It truly is, and that's what made our locker room in Saginaw great, and that's what continues to help this locker room grow because there's always room to grow. And so we feel like we bring that ultra competitive side out. I hope it's gonna make everyone a little bit more competitive, a little bit more chippy, and kind of play the style that we need to play to win this thing.
Now, we're not talking about some alternate reality in which you got traded by yourself here, but I wanted to ask, how much easier do you think it is coming here with a teammate, with a friend like that, as opposed to coming here by yourself?
Yeah, 100%. It makes the transition awesome, especially when it's one of your best buddies on the team. Like, when we got the call, we were kind of like laughing to each other, like already figuring out our billet situation, right? Like, just wanted to live together already. Like, so, it makes it that much more special that you get to go through this whole process with somebody, and I couldn't imagine a better guy doing it with than Brady.
I wanted to ask a couple of more questions on your time with the Spirit before we moved on from that, just real quick. But so we've had players on here, obviously coming to Canada for the first time, like Matvey Petrov or whatever, and the issues that they have to deal with. But for you, as a Canadian, having to go play junior hockey in the States, what kind of challenges does that bring to you as a player?
Honestly, it was a bit of a transition to start it out, but again, like Saginaw became home really quick, and that's the same thing that's going to happen in North Bay, and that's what the OHL does such a great job with. They make your transition so easy, and they make everywhere feel home really quick. So there wasn't any huge challenges going to Saginaw. Like there's like people talk about knocks on Saginaw, there is no knocks. Like it's a great place to be. It felt like home right off the bat, and North Bay is already trending in that direction. And in a week's time, this is going to be home for me. So, like again, like both organizations have done an unbelievable job, and yeah, like this is already turning into home for me.
Um, moving or because they're coming up in a couple of weeks, I'm sure for you it's going to be strange seeing that Spirit jersey on the other side of the ice. But I wanted to ask because we're broadcasters, so we're always looking for an edge in the broadcast booth. Can you give us a scouting report on Michael Misa?
Michael Misa, yeah, I can give you a damn good scouting report on Michael Misa. He plays with a ton of speed, a ton of skill, and again, ultra competitive. And that's what you need to be a talented player in this league. Skill can get you so far. You need to be an ultra competitor, and he is that, and it shows. Like, I don't know, what does he have now? Like 14 goals. Like, The kid can play. He's a hell of a player. There's a reason he got exceptional status. But again, like we've got a heavy team here, a hard team, and that's always hard to play against no matter who you are. So that's what we'll look to do December 11th and look to shut him down along with the rest of the guys and put a 0 on the board.
Did you think a trade might be coming? I mean, you guys weren't playing too bad down in Saginaw. It's very reminiscent of the trade that Adam made last year in getting Kyle McDonald from Windsor, where Windsor was a good team, and it's like you guys could use a 19-year-old that can score, right? So did you think a trade was coming at some point?
No, I didn't. But that being said, like I guess Saginaw is going a little bit of a different direction this year, and that's totally okay, and that's their choice. And it's probably my last year in the league, and I want to be somewhere where I have the best chance to win. And so Saginaw put me in that spot. Super thankful for them to do that, and Adam really made a push for us, and we couldn't be more thankful for that too. So it shows that we're wanted here. It shows that Saginaw did a great job in placing us in a spot where they think we can win, and they were telling us, excuse me, they were telling us like we believe in what North Bay's doing. They're doing everything right over there, and they're gonna have a serious chance to win this whole thing. So we want you guys to be a part of that, and so we're thankful for that, and thankful to be in a place where we have an opportunity to do that.
Man, after so many years of this team being lost in the wilderness, it feels so good to hear other teams like be like, yeah, we believe in what North Bay's doing too. I don't know if you knew this. I'm sure you probably did, but it's kind of poetic that you come to North Bay considering Saginaw is the former North Bay Centennials.
Yeah, yeah, we were actually talking about that. The North Bay Centennials moved to Saginaw. What was it, 2002?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is kind of ironic when you think about it that way.
I can't remember many trades that the two teams have made with each other, save for bringing Zach Bertina here a couple of years ago, Matt. Like I can't remember many trades.
Yeah, that was the
Spirit
Brady Clark
You
deal,
guys
right?
sent us Pacey back in the day. Pacey
Casey
Schluden.
Schluting,
Oh
that's
yeah.
right. For just for draft picks, right? There wasn't any
I
players
think
moved
so.
out.
I don't remember the
Yeah.
trade exactly, but Pacey,
Yeah.
what an unbelievable guy he is.
Did he
Yeah.
did you reach out to him after the trade asking him what it's like and what to expect from the troops?
Well, so he reached out to me before I got the opportunity to reach out to him. I guess like
That's
everything
awesome.
goes through the grapevine so quickly. He called me. He's like, "Are you going to North Bay?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude." Like, so we're gonna set something up. He plays for Collingwood now in the OJ. But he's coming up. He's coming back home as soon as we get back. So we'll set something up to bring him over to the billet house or something. Get to spend some time with him because we played 2 years with him. So yeah.
Awesome.
That's good to hear.
Great kid. Yeah, I like Pacey a lot.
With the whole another interesting thing, of course, being you going to the Team Canada camp this summer, and Ryan Houlihan was there as well. Did you have any interaction with Uli there when you were there, or none at all?
Yeah, for sure I did. And Adam said that he's like Uli pointed you out as a guy of interest to us after that camp. So that makes me feel pretty good about how my camp went.
Yeah.
But yeah, that being said, like Uli and Adam have both made our transition great, and we're obviously still transitioning. Like it was our first day of practice today, but just going through the motions and getting a little bit more comfortable every day. And Uli's done an unbelievable job in helping us do that.
It's wild to sit here and be like, yeah, it's your first day of practice day, and you already have 3 games under your belt with the team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
oh my goodness. I wanted to ask a little bit about that camp and the Team Canada World Juniors, being on the radar. Is that kind of add any pressure to yourself, or is it just kind of background noise?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit in the background. Obviously, it's every kid's dream, right? So, it's definitely in my mind. I feel like I had a great camp. I feel like the start of my season's going pretty well, and if I get the call, great, and I'll just do what I can to make that team. Whatever I have to do, whether it's fourth line minutes, first line minutes, I'll slot in wherever I have to. And but yeah, so again, like of course it's in the back of your mind. But that being said, I have a goal here in North Bay right now, and if the call comes, great. But that being said, my main goal is in North Bay.
Usually the guy who produces our broadcasts usually asks some funny questions, and some of them have kind of rubbed off on me a little bit, Ben Long. So I got to ask you a couple as well that aren't necessarily, well, they're a little hockey related, but I'll ask you a couple first. So, The team you're drafted by, Buffalo, as you know, is not, letting players pick goal songs this year. So I wanted to ask you, if you're allowed to pick a goal song here, what song would you choose?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm a big music guy. I love it. But probably, I don't know. I love that walkout song that the Mets guy had.
Yes.
It's a great song, but everyone's using it now. So like, I feel like if I picked that, it would be like too common. Uh,
Just jumping
our
on the
walk,
bandwagon.
yeah, exactly. We used to go out, and when we used to go out, it would always be "Shake That" by Eminem. So I'd probably pick that one. That would be hilarious. I think it's a great song. It's kind of funny. So
Yeah, that would be a good one. In
Do
the
you
music,
get any
go
do you
ahead,
get
Matt.
any input to some of the warm-up music now? I know a lot of teams let the captains and the alternates actually pick the warm-up music. So now that you're coming over to a new team, do you have any input to that at all?
oh, it's way too early. It was such a blur my first night. I don't even remember the music that was going
Okay.
on. It was such a blur, but yeah, I don't know. Like me and Hissy will probably give our little 2 cents and put a couple song requests in there eventually.
Awesome.
We've heard that Justin Ertle's the locker room DJ. So do you think at any point, being a music guy, that you might kind of step in for a game or two and take over?
Oh, it's way too early for that. I don't know. I don't know, but Nelly seems to be taking over the music a little bit too. So I think it's Justin and Nelly that do the music right now.
Um, on the music vein, if you're out for a night of karaoke, what song would be your go-to?
Me and Hissy are all over Tyler Childers right now. We just throw that on shuffle. Like for 10 hours, we had the same 20 songs on shuffle. Like he's unbelievable. And we were talking about it. We were like, the Memorial Cup Finals, June 4th. Tyler Childers is in Detroit, Michigan, June 6th. We could bring the Memorial Cup to the Tyler Childers concert. So we're already having talks about Tyler Childers and stuff like that. But yeah, he's my go-to right now. Feathered Indians is a great song. What's the one though? Tattoos. I think we're listening to Tattoos pretty hard right now. But yeah, he's our go-to every time we get in the car in the morning. Tyler Childers. Leave the rink. Tyler Childers. Get home playing some cards. Tyler Childers.
I'm
So
getting some meme mean How I Met Your Mother. I would walk 500 miles in the car just over and over again vibes here.
yeah.
Um, I mean, obviously hockey being what people are knowing you for right now, is there any skill that you would have, or hobby that you would have that would kind of surprise people?
Outside of hockey,
Yeah.
I'm bilingual. I can speak French. So
Wow.
funny story about that one actually. I was 4 years old and the local French school was well, I've lost it. I've lost a lot of it by now. Like whenever I see somebody French, like I try and pick it back up a little bit. Like, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago I stopped it, but I was 4 years old and I went sprinting to my parents, freaking out. I'm like, Mom, Dad, they're opening a French school, and like I'm 4 years old. They're kind of chuckling. They're like, Yeah, like what? Why? Why do you need to go to a French school? I was like, I have to go. I have to go. Like, why do you have to go? And I go, if I get drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, I need to do my interviews in French. And both of them just start hysterically laughing and kind of blow it off. And you can't start till grade one. I think I was in kindergarten at the time. So a year later goes by and I went up to them again. Like, I have to go to this school. I don't have a choice. Like, Montreal drafts me. I got to do an interview in French. So
Amazing.
eventually in grade one, they threw me in French school and I went to French school till grade 8. So
Wow.
That's
kind of
fantastic. I honestly, I think most people in Canada should probably look at taking French outside of how they offer it in English school as like just a
exactly,
subject
yeah.
maybe once or
And
twice a week.
it
Like
made life
it's
so much easier in high school
yeah,
too, like enrolling in those French classes, and it's just
yeah,
like easy 90.
exactly.
Thank
Because
you
they
very
just kind of
much.
rehashed everything at that point,
Exactly. It's
right?
like, thank you
Yeah,
very much. I'll rate that.
yeah, exactly. No, I've got my 5-year-old twins are in French immersion right now as well, and just because of that, it's like it opens so many more doors for you, and yeah, maybe they do find some work in Montreal down the line. They'll go, thank God I did one thing right with us. Well, yeah,
I can't speak a single word except for, like, the basic conversations.
Yeah, yeah.
I could probably get by in Montreal like if I went there, but then they would probably also really make fun of me. Like in grade 9 French, I can't roll my R's, so I couldn't like we were or it was grade 8 French, and our teacher made fun of me for not being able to roll my R when I said mustard. Like I was just like, okay, well, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not interested in this anymore. Then if that's how you're gonna be, so. And then grade 9 French was funny because all we did was like watch movies, and we watched like Jaws, but it wasn't in French. Like it was just like we
Just
watched
straight up
Jaws.
Jaws in English.
Yeah, I was like,
Hilarious. The
all
French
right,
teacher probably didn't even know French. That's why.
Yeah,
no.
exactly.
He's probably like, yeah, okay, here you can watch a shark kill some people, I guess. Like,
There you go. Not a bad little Tuesday.
yeah. Josh, last question I got for you. It pertains to that Kingston game. I wanted to ask you about when you're left all alone in front of the net for way too long and then you end up scoring that goal. What's going through your mind? Because I'm sure in the moment it feels like it's bang bang, but like there's a solid 2 or 3 seconds there where you're left alone.
Yeah, I was telling Matt everything in me wanted to give that puck back door, and eventually it just got too late that I had to shoot the puck, and I thought side was my best bet. He challenged me hard, tried to go over his shoulder with it. Lucky it worked out, and then going by the bench, like I saw all the fans, I couldn't help but give it like one of those like get on your feet North Bay. So it was a special goal. It's one I'll remember for sure. My first goal in North Bay, being on a Thursday night, the home night, like it was a very special night for both me and Hiss. And yeah, I think that kind of sums it up right there.
Well, I'm sure there'll be many more special moments and hopefully some more special games here in North Bay moving forward for you two. Really thankful that you took the time here this week when you're still transitioning to the team to hop on with us on our little podcast here. So thanks again.
No, thank you guys for having me. I had a blast.
Average Joe's Eatery and Patio Bar is North Bay's only year-round lakefront restaurant. On the shores of beautiful Trout Lake, we have been serving delicious food and stunning views since 1999. Indulge in one of our delicious menu items or simply sit with a cocktail in hand and watch the beauty of Trout Lake before your eyes. Check us out online at averagejoes.net or visit us in person at 3501 Trout Lake Road, North Bay.
As a Canadore College alumni, you have access to perks. Canadore Alumni Perks. This is a lifetime membership that includes special access to great offers, opportunities to get involved, and so much more. Graduates can access discounts and special offers from businesses and hotels locally, across Canada, and internationally. Get information on special events and news, or access the alumni job portal. Keep in touch with Canadore's alumni office. Visit canadorecollege.ca/perks. Great things happen here.
You rely on your vehicle to take you to the places that matter most to you. So bring your vehicle to the team you can rely on to keep it running at its best. Dave's Automotive Services. Whether you're getting your car or truck ready for the season with a tire change, making sure you're safe on the road with an inspection and certification, or doing your due diligence to keep your vehicle in tip-top shape with regular maintenance, Dave's Automotive Services has you covered. Expert troubleshooting, quality repairs, and time-efficient labor are the 3 stars of service you can expect when you bring your car or truck to Dave's Automotive Services at 411 Airport Road. Call 705-478-5544 and book your appointment today.
Welcome back to the Frontline podcast. I'm Matthew Sookram, and so pleased to be joined by the captain of the Powassan Voodoos. It's Alex Little. Alex, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's talk about the season so far. Voodoos are really off to a great start here as we enter the third month of play. What do you make of the team's progress to this point? You're stringing together quite a few wins, and as we're recording this, going into tonight against French River, you guys are actually on an 8-game winning streak.
Yeah, I mean, we've put together a really good team this year. Had a few changes, and you know what? It's all been for the better of the team. And as you can see, we're on the 8-game heater right now. So looking forward to keeping it going tonight, make it 9, and see how long it can last.
Now, in my experience in covering the NOJHL, there usually is a lot of turnover, especially at the beginning of the season, where some guys might be with their major junior clubs. Some guys might be at other camps, and then GMs are scouting junior B leagues, and just trying to make all the pieces fit together. As a captain, how do you handle what could be a lot of changeover in a very short amount of time?
Yeah, it can be hard, especially since we're such a tight group this year. Everybody that comes in gets welcomed. They're a great part of the team, and then it's a little bit of a business even at junior A
Yeah.
level, right? Guys have to come in and out, and you have to be able to adapt because if we can't, then that could be your season right there if you get too hurt over one guy leaving or another guy coming in.
Absolutely. And you're a guy that came kind of came back to the team, right? You spent the summer exploring some options, and I was talking to head coach Peter Goulet about how much you mean to the team and how big it was for the team to have you back. Let's talk through what some of those other options were for you and what you went out to explore. What were you looking to maybe find for yourself in going to some different camps?
Sometimes you feel like you need a change, and so I was going around to some camps, just seeing what kind of different hockey was like, different play styles. And at the end of the day, just realized the grass isn't always greener, and uh, Pete and Josh are both great coaches, and great owner, great GM with Chris Dawson. So like, you know what, you can go wrong coming back to play for a great organization like Powassan. And I'm happy I decided to come back this year. We have a really good team, and I think we can really push for the championship this year. I know it's early, but it's definitely something we're thinking about.
Absolutely. And that's the aspirations you want, especially when like you say, you come back to the team and it's like, okay, when you've made that decision, it's kind of like, this is where I want to be because I feel like there is a chance to win here.
Yeah, exactly. Like before I even came back, I knew that they said like Pete said, I don't like to lose, and I don't think anybody does, but he's really showing it this year with the team we've put together so far.
Absolutely. So, you were originally with the team back in the 1920 season, I believe.
Yeah, the COVID year was my first actual year signed to the team.
Okay, so let's talk about that. I mean, the team, what they finish first in the East, like 90 points or 92 points or something like that in the regular season, and then it had to get cut off because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But just talk to me about what that first year was like for you in the NOJHL before everything got kind of turned sideways.
Yeah, well, I didn't get to play a whole lot with them. I was actually with the North Bay Trappers that year, and I was called up for a few games with them. I was actually really looking forward to spending the playoffs with that team,
Yeah.
just as kind of a black ace. Going to practices, maybe getting a shot as a 16-year-old to get in the lineup. So pretty disappointing that it ended. A lot of good 20-year-olds there that didn't get a chance to finish their career in a good way, especially with a team that could have made a serious push for it, right? And then guys that I met there that next year when COVID really messed things up, they also missed their 20-year-old year. So pretty big mess with that. But I mean, it's still kind of lingering on now. We felt it last year in January, we got shut down. So it's really changed hockey over the past 3 years.
Yeah, it really has, especially for I think someone in your age group, right? Where you're coming up from the U16 group, trying to get your feet wet in a higher level of hockey, and then ever since then it's kind of been stop and start. So clearly there's obviously going to be some effects to your overall development. So what have you done in the last 2.5 years to just try to maintain being game ready and trying to stay in game shape, even if you weren't playing actual games?
Yeah, I mean, first off, you just gotta stay positive because I mean, there's a lot of negative thoughts coming from everybody during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of free time, so it's kind of up to yourself to if you want it, you want to become a better player, you can push yourself. You can shoot pucks at home. You can work out at home, even if you don't have a weight room, body weight stuff, right? Um, just a bit of drive to keep yourself going, so that when you got back to it, you can go off on the right foot, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that a lot of guys I think now are finding out whether they did put in enough work or not going into this year. So you're from Minden, Ontario. Tell me about the decision to come up here and play for the Trappers originally. And were you billeted by Scott Ray and that family?
Yeah, I lived with the Rays, great family for 3 years.
Awesome.
Yeah, amazing household to get into. I have 2 older sisters, but I got to live the life with 2 brothers for a little bit.
Right on.
Owen and Mason. Got to play with Owen. Got to grow up with Mason, shooting pucks with him in the yard. Now he's in the OHL. Yeah, just amazing. So I kind of decided to come up here. I was just exploring the NOJHL and ended up, as a young guy, not really finding a spot, and decided to stay and play AAA in the North so I could be close to some junior teams. And just kind of worked out the Powassan and decided to affiliate me that year.
Couldn't hurt to be living in the house with one of the battalion assistant coaches at the time, and again with 2 sons that I guess Owen was drafted by that point, and Mason just got drafted this past year. So
yeah, so when I moved in there, Owen was just drafted. Played the year, always got to go to the rink, and sometimes we could use facilities if nobody was in it, or
that's awesome.
watch the game. So I mean, that was pretty awesome. Get to step into the life of OHL player for a few days.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then luckily enough, I was drafted too following that. So, I mean, got to stay with that household and experience a little bit of the battalion lifestyle for a little bit while I was with them.
Absolutely. So then you get to play with the Powassan Voodoos. After the pandemic settles down and you have a really good season last year. Tell me about stepping into a full-time role at the NOJHL level, and just trying to be a leader on the back end, because even though you hadn't been in the league, just by your age, you're already looked at as you're one of the older guys at that point now.
Yeah, exactly. Like I didn't play at all in the COVID season there. I think it's 2021. But we lose our rookie status because we were signed. So we had one 20-year-old, and we might have had 2 or 3 19-year-olds, and then then we were next in line on what felt like a young team, but I'm already quite a ways into my junior career at that point, right? About halfway. So, I mean, to be that young and feel like you have to kind of run the room and be leadership, it wears on you a little bit. Luckily enough, you had a good co-captain with Cameron Lemke and assistants that really helped keep the room all in check, right? So I didn't have to feel like it was a priority. It was more of just playing and being who I am, and I didn't have to act like I was somebody I wasn't.
Tell me about what the coaching staff said to you. Was Mark Lafleur last year naming you as captain, and then Peter Goulet keeping that captaincy on you this year? What was the difference, if there was at all, between the messages from either coach? What was it like to just get the honor, first of all, last year?
I mean, it was a huge honor, total surprise, right, as a young player, and pretty much what felt like my first year at junior. The message is just like, don't be somebody you aren't. If you aren't a talker in the room, if you're not the guy that yells at the guys to do stuff, don't try and be that guy. If you're the guy that just leads by playing, which was more my approach as a young guy, then be that captain. So that's pretty much what it's been from both coaches. There is quite a bit of a job that I have to do there. From both coaches, I have the expectation for me to do that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't feel as much an expectation when you're in a room full of good guys and they all respect you and listen to you.
That's awesome. That's all. It makes the job a little easier when when you have that, for sure. And then coming into this season again, captaining the team, you're off to a great start as we talk here. 20 games into the season, 20 points on the year. growing up, had you always been an offensive defenseman, or how do you kind of describe your game?
Honestly, my game's been all over. I started my first year of hockey as a goalie.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, I played forward for the next 4 years. Then I was thrown on defense. I've been there pretty much ever since. Just kind of playing where I've been put. And yeah, I mean, offensive, you love to score. It's the most fun
Yeah,
part of the game.
absolutely.
But before this year, I don't know. I picture myself more as a shutdown, but the game's changing, right? So you have to be able to
Hmm.
adapt and play at both ends of the ice.
And especially I find in the NOJHL where rink sizes might differ from city to city, and teams play such different styles. Like, just in watching some of the games, there's teams that play a heavy game and they're all about the forecheck and they really use the body, and then there's other teams that just are like 100 miles an hour, and you're like, okay, where are these guys going next? How do we stop the speed? Like, the NOJHL really is a mixed bag of anything you can expect in hockey. So to go out there and put up the points and try to play within yourself and your own style, it's something that must be a difficult task every single night.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't take all the credit. We have a great scouting report before the games, letting us know on each team. Our coaches do an amazing job with that. So we kind of know what they're bringing beforehand. And yeah, it does. It changes every night. So you just kind of got to be ready for the game. And as we play French River, this will probably be our fourth or fifth time tonight. So you start to get
Right.
used to a few teams. But the rink size is something you never get used to, flipping back and forth. Like
Yeah.
Sudbury's rink is just a totally different animal.
Yeah. It have they always played in an Olympic style ice, or like did they play in this in that same rink last year as well?
They did, yes.
Okay.
So we played there. The schedule was a little different last year. We only played them twice,
Right.
once there, once at home. This year, I believe we have them 8 or 9 times. So 4 or 5 times in that rink is pretty crazy compared to the Sportsplex in Powassan.
Yeah, no kidding. And I know, obviously, with the Sportsplex in Powassan being a little bit smaller, you can utilize that speed a little better, like the whole team can, I guess. How do you maybe game plan a little bit differently from rink to rink? Is it just saying, we know our home ice and we know it works here, kind of thing, and then you try to emulate that on the road, or is there kind of a different approach when you go into these different places?
There's definitely a different approach. Sudbury, totally different game style because like it's so wide outside the dots. So, I mean, if you get beat there, it's a lot different than getting beat in Powassan. You don't have the room to recover.
Right.
Um, at home, we practice there every day, right? So we don't want to lose at home. We know how the boards bounce. We know all little sneaky plays in our own building. So we don't want to change there. On the road, I mean, the most you can do is just see the size of the rink and throw a couple pucks against the board, see how they're bouncing that night.
Yeah.
But it really is different from night to night, considering that we can go from 200 feet by 85 to
That's
200 feet by 98. It's just crazy.
That's it. It certainly makes it for an interesting league overall. General Manager Chris Dawson wanted me to ask you about the 7-second goal you scored. I believe it was the fastest goal ever scored off a draw by a defenseman, where you won the faceoff at the team's blue line, took the puck, and went all the way down and beat their defenseman to score a goal. Do you recall this play, and what went through your head when you're like, wow, that was a quick one, kind of thing?
Honestly, I had no clue about that stat.
Okay.
That's news to
I'll
me.
have Chris recheck his notes, but
Yeah. I believe that was last year though. Elliott Lake at home. If that's the play, it was a pretty quick one. It's the fastest one I can think of. But yeah, no, I had no clue it was the fastest or anything like that. He never reached out to me about that one.
that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, Chris would be the guy that knows that for sure. I wanted to ask about going from being a goalie to afford to a defenseman. Do you see any advantage in learning each position on the ice that has continued to help you today, or when you moved into a new position? Because I can imagine going from being a goalie to a defenseman might seem like a bit of a smoother transition, but from going to being the guy that has to stop the pucks to being a guy that now has to score, for any young kid out there that's listening, or anyone, any parents that are looking at putting their kids in hockey, should they try to explore playing different positions on the ice?
I think 100% you should explore. I think there's huge benefits to it. I mean, goalie is a little different. Like, you get to see the whole game, so you can watch everything unfold. At a young age, you're not really thinking about that. You're just having
Sure.
fun laying on the ice.
Yeah.
But going from defense to forward at, I'd say probably ages 10 and up, you're going to notice a huge change in the game, especially if you're me doing it. Forward, you're always in the rush. You're busy. You don't see stuff. Defense, you're kind of like a quarterback. You watch everything
Right.
unfold. So then you can also take that in reverse. And once you've seen everything unfold, now you can play forward easier as a defenseman because you've watched what they've had to do the whole time.
That's it.
So yeah, I'd say definitely a benefit, and everybody should try different positions, because who knows, maybe you love defense, but you try forward and it's actually what you love more, and maybe you're better at it. So yeah, I say all kids should probably reach out to their coach and say, hey, let me have a game
move
up
over
front
here.
or whatnot.
Absolutely. And what about, I've heard that about other sports as well, is some kids are just hockey all the time. They've got to kind of break it up with something else. So did you play any other sports growing up?
Yeah, growing up, I pretty much played anything I could.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love sports of all kind. I was really big into lacrosse at one point. Once you start getting to higher levels of hockey, you kind of have to start choosing, right?
For
You don't
sure.
have as much time, and you don't want to be playing something like football and getting hurt in it before your big season in hockey, right?
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, I think football might be stretching it a little bit, actually.
Yeah.
I know the Nipissing Lakers actually had a player on their women's team that missed the first couple weeks of the season because she was trying out for the national rugby team in Japan. And I always thought that was a pretty interesting story because rugby is not a soft sport at all. So you take a hit in rugby, you better be, ready to get up and put those skates back on. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure if she plays rugby, she's probably pretty crazy out there on the ice.
absolutely, yeah. And just before I let you go, just want to get your comments on just playing in the city of Powassan. This is a city and a fan base that's really passionate about the team, and what's the talk like in the locker room when you see those stands full night after night, and hearing how loud it gets in that building.
Yeah, you know what? Last year, I think we filled our capacity that COVID allowed every single night. It doesn't feel like that much because, you don't get to see all the seats filled. But this year, seeing everybody in there, the building's loud, you can hear them cheer. It actually means a lot to us. Like, if you play in front of an empty crowd like we do in some cities in the north, it really kills the mood of the team. But we have such a passionate fan base that cheers for us and gives it to the refs and the other team every now and again. It really builds us up, especially when we're down and we're coming back. I don't think they realize it, but we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, Alex, I want to thank you so much for joining me. This has been a great time to chat with you. Really appreciate it, and thanks so much for doing this. And hope you had a great time here on the Frontline podcast. And we'll definitely reach out and look to have you later on in the season again.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for having me.
Hey there, I'm Mike the Financial Advisor. When you strip it down to its core and you take away all the industry jargon, I help people solve financial concerns. So if you're concerned that you'll never save enough to retire comfortably, or that your kid is going to graduate post-secondary $40,000 in debt, or maybe even that life is going to take a really unfortunate sideways turn and somebody is going to have to open a GoFundMe page for you and your family, I can help you prevent all of those things from happening. If you want to see how, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Just do a search for Mike the Financial Advisor. You should find me.
Meals are a special time for families to gather, share their day, and spend quality time together. Those dinners are made extra special when you add tropical produce found in the markets and grocery stores that carry La Huerta imports. La Huerta knows the importance of family, so they know which quality products make the best quality meals for your customers, whether it be Mexican Hass avocados, Brazilian figs, Ecuadorian red dragon fruit, or something just as exotic and special. To get your supply of the best tropical produce at competitive prices with brands buyers trust, contact La Huerta Imports at 705-752-1478.
Community engagement is one of our core focuses at McDonald's. The key is finding the right people who are passionate about the same things we are, helping kids be kids. McDonald's proudly supports local organizations such as the North Bay Regional Health Center Foundation, Big Brothers Big Sisters, One Kids Place, the Children's Aid Society, and Ronald McDonald House Charities. Stop by McDonald's on 1500 Fisher Street, North Bay, to see how we can serve you and the community every day.
And a huge thank you to newest member of the battalion, Josh Bloom, for joining us and talking on the front half of this about Saginaw and everything about the battalion and the trade. That's the stuff that really interests me as the general manager work. So I always want to know, like, from a player's perspective, like, when's the first time you figured that a trade was coming and all that stuff. So I really appreciate him humoring us on that. And of course, Voodoo's captain, Alex Little, for sitting down with you, Matt, and discussing everything Powassan and himself as well. So that's always fun to hear from as well. So thank you for that segment.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks to Alex for jumping on with me and doing that. That we actually recorded that ahead of the Powassan Voodoos games last week. So yeah, Alex Little got to continue his point streak, and the Powassan Voodoos got to continue their win streak. They're up to 10 games of that winning streak now. So and I know we're going to touch on that a little bit, but why don't we kind of dissect the trade first, but with that the battalion made. I asked Josh this, and it's just like, I don't get why Saginaw makes this deal at this time.
Yeah,
great for the North Bay Battalion to get two quality players, and I feel like they did give up something. I think Nick Seaman and Cam Govro are good players, but yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher on Saginaw's end.
Yeah,
considering where they are in the standings right now, why you want to give up players of that caliber.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to me because truthfully, I hadn't been paying attention to the West too much this year, again, much like last year, because you really only care, not that you don't care about where the West ends up and all that stuff, especially now that the battalion are playing in the West again, but you really want to know how the rivals are doing, how the Eastern Division's doing compared to the Central and stuff like that. So to me, when I saw that this trade had come through, I was like, oh, Saginaw's having a terrible year. Because all I had ever seen was Michael Misa this, Michael Misa that, right? And then you look at the standings and you're like, Saginaw's not having a bad year. Like, what is going on? Like you said, it's reminiscent of that Kyle McDonald trade last year, where, I mean, to be fair to Windsor, it still worked out pretty good for them. Josh Curry was a good player.
It's worked. It's worked out really well for them in getting Alex Christopoulos earlier in the season too.
Yeah, I mean, he's, I think, tied for second in league scoring right now when it comes to goals, or third. Okay, so third. But I mean, just seeing Josh Curry, be a good foot soldier in that playoff run last year. He's now with Kingston. Seemed pretty excited to be back until that game actually got underway last Thursday. Wasn't a pretty sight if you're a Frontline fan, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, the battalion did give up something in Nick Seema and Cam Govro, and they also gave up 5 draft picks, which I know are magic beans, but in the OHL, it's such a cyclical thing that you almost want to hold on to them as much as you can, especially second rounders, because those are essentially first rounders in trade value, because you can't trade first rounders. And they gave up a couple of second rounders in the trade. But I think Cam Govro, he's 19, probably going to come back as an OA next year. He was kind of playing, 7th blue line minutes. So that one, to me, he's going to be missed, obviously.
Whereas Brayden Hislop jumps right on your top deep pairing.
Exactly.
Ty Nelson.
And I mean, Cam Govera was a revelation last year, especially with all the injuries. I mean, coming in, being an older player that comes into camp, you don't really think much of him until he takes a run at Brandon Go, and then he drops the gloves with Liam Arnsby. So, but I think what's really going to hurt is the development of Nick Sema. That's he looked good in spurts last year, but he was really coming together this year. I mean, albeit playing on the fourth line, whereas again Josh Bloom jumps in on that top line and kind of puts Anthony Romani back down, which gives your team greater depth, which I think is a great thing. But I mean, Sema scored a goal in his last game as a battalion, right? Like on that nice with Kyle McDonald going down on the breakaway and Sema following up. I mean, Sema's numbers aren't going to pop off the page, but I really like the way that he played this year, and he's the kind of guy that I circle that he's going to be a good player for Saginaw in the future, but that's the cost of win now deals.
Yeah, you're looking at it, and next year, you know, Nick Sema might take that step forward, and the battalion could be looking at it and going, we could really use a player like Nick Sema right now, right? But
yeah,
where like, you know, same thing like I said before, as with Alex Christopoulos, you look at his point totals and go, oh, that would be nice for the battalion to have that kind of production. But it's also in a sense that you just feel good for the kid that he's able to put up that kind of production, whereas it's not where you're in an area where the battalion are desperate for that kind of production. It would just be nice to, you know, to see on your team since you were the team that drafted him. But yeah, I think I wish all the best to Nick and Cam and in the remainder of their careers in the OHL. And you know, I'd love to see them put up some point totals because they worked hard last year, and they deserve to be rewarded for it.
Yeah, and you know what's kind of funny about that is we talk about how nobody really knew that the trade was coming, but our excellent fortune teller Derek Lindemann seemed to have a vibe on Sunday at the battalion game in which Sema just scored his last goal as a troop, saying Sema's not going to be here by the trade deadline, thinking that Sema would want out. From what I've heard, it kind of doesn't seem that way. It seemed like he was pretty upset actually to leave North Bay. But still, again, that's the cost of doing business, and he's looked good with Saginaw so far in his short time there. But yeah, it's just again, it's kind of like you need to make this move, or you want to make this move. You want to be a win, you want to be a championship team, but that's the cost of doing business, and that's just the unfortunate part of it, especially because in my personal dealings with Nick Sema, he was always very pleasant with me. He would always say hello to me, after the game when he'd pop out, or if we're at Wacky Wings after the game as well, he'd walk in and usually say hello to the table or something, right? Like, he just seemed like an all around genuine dude. And on a personal note, I met his dad Walter at training camp last year. I met his dad and Anthony Romani's dad out in the parking lot. I was walking into the Memorial Gardens, and he stopped me. He's like, "Hey, are you the guy that does the podcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me," type of thing. And then he's like,
"Punch you in the face."
Yeah, and I'm coming for you, Walter. No, Breaking Bad's ruined that name for me for life.
Exactly.
Anyways, no, he was very because we had Nick on at that point in the summer after he'd been traded, and he was very. I listened to every episode. What you guys do is great, and it was very nice to meet him and Romani's dad. And then he would come up to me in the stands every once in a while during that training camp week, or he'd give a little wave type of thing. So, gonna miss seeing him around the rink a little bit. And but again, he's gonna go. He's gonna be a top player in Saginaw. I don't think he's gonna be playing fourth line minutes in Saginaw. So, it's just as you mentioned, a bit of a head scratching move for the Spirit at this point in time. But obviously, they're looking at their window down the road a little bit more when Misa, Misa's a great player now.
Build around Misa. That's it.
Imagine how he's going to be in 2 years from now, right? So
yeah,
and Sema's going to be a 19-year-old in 2 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but here's what it does, like from the business standpoint. If you're the North Bay Battalion, we know that Tanais Mathurin is going to be out for a little bit of time, as head coach Ryan Olan indicated last week. He said that Avery Winslow will probably come back sooner than Tanais Mathurin, but those are two defensemen that were expected to play big minutes for this team. So to get a guy like Brayden Hislop into the team helps alleviate a little bit of that on the back end for losing two guys like that. We've also seen Kyle McDonald not in the lineup for the last couple of games as well. So, you add in 19-year-old Josh Bloom and, again, that alleviates the lineup and allows it so that Ryan Olehan doesn't have to put pressure on the guys that might not be ready to play those kinds of minutes. I mean, you also got Ethan Procession back for this last weekend, right? Who was at the World Under-17 Challenge, winning the silver medal. So congratulations to Ethan on that, which is absolutely awesome to see. But again, you're adding pieces back to this lineup, and I mean, man, when Kyle McDonald gets back and joins a lineup that now features Bloom and Procession again, I don't know. I don't know how this team on paper doesn't look like they're going to contend for the Eastern Conference title again.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring up Procession because he's the guy that set up Bloom for that goal against Kingston. But I mean, and just to talk about it, you talk about Kyle McDonald coming back. In 3 games so far with the Battalion, I mean, Bloom's already a point-a-game player. He has a goal and 2 assists for 3 points in 3 games. So, I mean, he talks about, trying to get integrated with this team. I think that looks pretty good when you have 3 points in 3 games, like right off the hop. But this is a bit of a different problem that the Battalion have not had in a very long time. I mean, last year at this point in time, we had the Russell, and Petrov line were clicking, or Jackson at the time, and Russell was your secondary, which is wild to think about. Russell was a secondary option at that point. And we were crying for secondary scoring, crying. And now we're just sitting here being like, oh man, where's everyone going to play?
Yeah. Is there going to be enough minutes to go around, right? But we said this last year, was that what Olehan's able to do is he is able to run his lines the way he wants them. And again, he's not forced to play guys in situations that they might not be prepared for.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, when the team goes out and builds like a 4 or 5 goal lead like they did against Kingston, now you're able to get guys like Procession that extra ice time.
Yeah.
Because you're not worried too much about having to maybe give up 1 goal. And you can let them get some of that extra time to try and figure things out. Maybe even you give them time against Kingston's top line because, maybe Kingston's top line has a couple 18, 19-year-olds and you're sending a 16-year-old out there, but you've got the lead and you're giving them the confidence to say, hey, go show me what you can do out there. Whereas in years past, it's like you can't afford to give that 16-year-old that time because, man, you need to win some games. And there were long stretches where the Battalion were not in a lot of positions where they felt comfortable winning games.
Yeah. And just looking back at the troops in general, I remember we've had this conversation, and I've had this conversation with a few people when we kind of, up until this window of contention opened up last year, we've talked a lot about the glory days of when the Battalion came here, right? The first 2-3 years. And I've said multiple times that I thought that second year team was the deepest team that they've had, that team that ultimately lost in 6 games to Oshawa, who Jake Smith said here, there was Zach Bertina injury away from winning the Memorial Cup that year. You heard it here multiple times now. But I think, and of course, the end of the year is going to speak for itself. But when I look back at this, and when I look at this team and I compare it to that team as being the high watermark, I think they're almost there, if not already there for depth wise.
Well, have they ever had 7 NHL prospects on a roster at the same time? I mean, that just goes to show you how much this team has done in terms of turning themselves around. And, we asked Josh Bloom this about were you paying attention and to what North Bay was doing. He's, how can you not when they're one of the last 4 teams playing, but also just the fact that they're putting something together special, and players actually want to come here. And honestly, I think it starts with not just Adam Dennis taking over as general manager, but convincing a guy like Ty Nelson to come and play here. I think it all starts right there. And then you have guys like Nelson and Arnsby and Jackson and Dom get drafted. And then, you're able to bring Petrov over. And, I don't know if Petrov could have maybe stuck around a little longer with the Edmonton Oilers, but the fact that Edmonton, was like, hey, you're going to go back to North Bay and you're going to learn some stuff there. And you're going to be ready to play with us when that time is over. And again, getting a guy like Josh Bloom to actually be excited to come 10 hours north of where he was playing before.
Yeah. And the winters are a little bit different here compared to Saginaw. So we're seeing it a little bit already. And not only that, but to convince a guy like Ty Nelson to come, and not only that, but Ty Nelson being like hyped to come. Like, I remember his introductory press conference after he was selected first overall, and how excited he was and whatnot. And then also, not only that, but he never played a game for the battalion, but he had a huge role on this team or effect on this team, and that's Matvey Guskov, who came from the London Knights and unfortunately never got to play. But he basically sold Matvey Petrov on coming to North Bay, and he had never even set foot in North Bay because Avery Winslow sold Matvey Guskov on coming to North Bay. So there's this whole ripple effect that kind of dates back to, really, if we wanted to really dig into it, that January trade deadline of 2020, bringing in Avery Winslow. But you think about it, because it feels like that's such a long time ago, considering everything that's happened in the world since then.
Yeah.
But really, the troops have only played one season since then, and the turnaround that they've had in that time is like, this is amazing. Like, it's just wild.
Yeah, it really is. I can't say enough good things about what Adam Dennis and the front office and the coaching staff have done with this team. It has been a pleasure to watch. Maybe not from an outsider's point of view, because it's just like they're, you guys were Eastern Conference finalists your first year, or OHL finalists your first year, Eastern Conference finalists your second year. And there was only 1 year where you didn't make the playoffs, but trust me, after having to watch some of those teams for 68 games, this has been a real pleasure to get to see and be a part of. And it's also been a pleasure to get to be a part of the Voodoos organization as well this year. Let's go from pumping one GM stars to another. Chris Dawson has done an amazing job with this team. Not that they weren't good at the beginning of the year, but he had to find quite a few pieces. I mean, he has been active on the trade front and acquiring players. You look at a guy like Mitch Wilkie for the Powassan Voodoos, who's paired up with Alex Little on that top D pairing. And he has fit in seamlessly with this team. You get a North Bay native, Chase Thompson, pull him out of French River, put him in a lineup, and he's a point per game player all of a sudden after getting only 7 points in 15 games with the French River Rapids. I mean, Chris Dawson. I knew this when he was the GM and president of the North Bay Trappers when they were in the NOJHL, but it's evident that he does a great job of finding some hidden gems throughout the leagues around Ontario, whether it's the junior B leagues or other junior A leagues. Getting a guy like Thomas Gazich to join the team, who becomes, again, another point per game player. It's just been awesome to watch the Voodoos evolve from where they were at the beginning of the season to where they are now. You also got to give head coach Peter Goulet and that coaching staff a lot of credit as well to find a way to utilize these players and make their game work in that small rinks ice surface in Powassan.
Yeah, especially in that small rinks ice surface. But I had the chance last week when I wasn't on the broadcast with Andrew White filling in admirably, but I was still at the game, of course, covering it for Bay Today, and I'm stuck sitting next. I shouldn't say stuck, but I'm stuck sitting next.
Stuck next to Dawson.
Yeah, it was the worst time of my life. I'm sitting next to Chris Dawson on Media Row, and Peter Goulet was there as well. And no disrespect to the other players because they've got me excited, but no one's got me excited the way that Thomas Gazich has got me excited so far for the Voodoos up front. I mean, he's so noticeable out there that he's like I cried.
He's a big guy.
He is a big guy, especially when you're down there doing PA and there's nothing that separates you from the players. You're like, yeah, this guy's a big guy. But I'd been crying on the broadcast. This is kind of like first world problems where the Voodoos are still doing great, but I'm like, these aren't my Powassan Voodoos compared to like the 2019-20 team. And producer Ben Long, I'm sure, got really tired of me here talking about a game breaker. They need a game breaker, and they it feels like they got that in Thomas Gazich. He's a player that in the way that Tucker Shields has turned around too. They feel like game breakers up front. Alex Little always kind of felt that way from the back end, but now it feels like he has a support cast as well, and Mitch Wilkie and Leotino back there as well. So they're exciting, but Thomas Gazich has got me really excited. So I asked Chris, I said, how did you identify this kid who's playing out in Manitoba? He's American who's playing in Manitoba. Like, how did you figure out him? And he said, actually, that was the work of Peter Goulet and his contacts. Is they had heard about this kid that wasn't really meshing out in Manitoba in the league out there, and the team had actually released him, and the Voodoos
sent him down to Georgetown, right?
Well, yeah, and the Voodoos were trying to acquire him from this team, but the team was still trying to trade him to Powassan, even though they had already released him. So they were kind of playing some dirty tricks here. But I said to head coach Peter Goulet, I said, if you're not able to go out there and see this kid play, what makes you kind of look at this kid that's been released and say, okay, yeah, I want to take him? And he says, honestly, it comes down to the people in your contacts that you have and trusting them, because all my contacts basically told me to take this kid. And if I don't trust my contacts, how am I going to bring in people that I can't go and see because I'm busy coaching a hockey team day in and day out? So credit to Peter Goulet and credit to his contacts out west that really were able to help bring in a guy like Thomas Gazich to Powassan, because he's going to be a force. And as you've seen, the Voodoos have become a force recently, winning 10 in a row. Although I did love it in our game notes email from Chris being like, it's impressive, but the Voodoos record for wins in a row is 26.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
You know what's actually really cool that the NOJHL does is they have a team's records page on their individual website. So it does list stuff like season records, single game records. That stuff, for a stat nerd like myself is pretty cool to see the team put that kind of stuff on there, even in a league like the NOJHL, that they do track that kind of stuff. So that is pretty cool. You talked about game breakers. I think another game breaker right now for the Powassan Voodoos is Dan DiRoccolo.
Yeah.
The goalie who is now 8-0 on the or 7-0.
He's
7-0.
Yeah, he hasn't
7-0 on the
yet.
season. He's won his last 3 games since coming back from an injury. And this is what I mean about the way Peter Goulet is coaching this team, especially on the small ice, is DiRoccolo was really, really good. But what allowed the Voodoos to win those 2 games against French River and Blind River is that the few times that DiRoccolo gave up rebounds on what should have been good secondary scoring chances, the defense were clearing them away. And they're putting that total team effort in the defensive zone, especially in the second period against Blind River. Literally, the ice was tilted. The Powassan Voodoos, I think, only got 3 or 4 shots in that period. Like, they got outshot by like 13, 14 shots in that period. And there were times where they were playing defense for probably 3 minutes straight because, again, with a small ice surface, even with them clearing the puck, Blind River was getting control at center ice, and the Voodoos would have to go all the way from their defensive zone past center ice to get that line change in. So they were really hemmed in. And it was a lot of bending but not breaking on Dyracolo's side and the defense side, and they were able to survive, like literally survive that second period, get to the third scoreless, and then they get the big goal from Liam's service, and with 6 minutes left in the game, and at that point, even though it was a 1-goal lead, it was like, yeah, this game's over. Like they weren't going to let Blind River score after that. And again, it comes from a lot of confidence between the pipes from Dan Dyracolo.
Yeah, and that's even though he's been solid all year round, that's something that we haven't been able to say about the Voodoos at the beginning of this year was confidence between the pipes, because their guy that was supposed to be their starter, Cannon Flageau, didn't really start off so hot. He's really turned it around recently, but I mean Dan Dyracolo really feels like the guy between the pipes now. Like he's really kind of taken over the crease, and when he was out with an injury, Flageau got a long string of starts with Caleb Saunders, who's no longer with the team, getting a start as well, winning a game actually against Cochrane. But yeah, it just feels like Dyracolo's like back, and he's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna take over here. And I'm kind of really, I know I mentioned it to you before, I felt bad taking Saturday off, but I really felt bad after seeing how that game went. And I'm tuning into the broadcast every once in a while, like being like, what's going on? What's going on? My phone hasn't updated. Maybe nothing's really happening. And then, it just looked like a real battle of the Titans, if you will, in that game against Blind River. So that looked like a good one.
Those are two big wins in their last 2 weeks. The one against Blind River just this past Saturday, and the one the Thursday before that against the Sudbury Cubs, where Dyracolo comes in 6 minutes into the game after Flageau gives up those 2 early goals and shuts the door, makes 40 saves in that game in relief, and the Voodoos go on to win 4-0. I know that was their 8th straight win at that point.
Yeah.
But that could feel like that's the turning point of the season right there.
Yeah, because basically, outside of one game, Sudbury's kind of had their way with the Voodoos all
They
year.
really have.
I mean, I was there for the season opener in Sudbury, and that was an ugly game. You and I were both there for the game at the NOJHL Showcase, which, even though it was a 1-goal victory for Sudbury, really wasn't, because it came down to a last-second goal for the Voodoos to claw their. They only started playing like in the last 2 minutes of that game, and really kind of closed.
That was a tough one to watch for sure.
Yeah, that one was like pull your hair out, frustrating. But yeah, that one against Sudbury really feels like, okay, we can play with the big boys in this league now, type of thing. So that's a good thing. And the Voodoos will have a chance to, at the time of this recording, it's tomorrow, but at the time of this release, time travel, it will be they will be putting their win streak to the test Wednesday against the Espanola Paper Kings. So in Espanola. So that should be one to watch out for. And then they do have a busy schedule at home. So while the Battalion, we should touch on the Battalion schedule. They're against Ottawa, which we'll be bringing you on Thursday from Memorial Gardens. But then the Voodoos, while the Battalion are out of town, Battalion take on Hamilton Friday and Niagara on Saturday. Well, if you're really bored and you don't know what to do, head on down to Powassan, because the Hearst Lumberjacks are in town Friday and the Cochrane Crunch are in town on Saturday. So it's going to be a busy weekend from the Sportsplex, especially when you factor in the fact that the U16 and U18 Trappers are playing in Powassan minutes or hours before the Voodoos game on Saturday. It's going to be a busy one.
Yeah, go down there, go see that next wave of potential OHL and Junior A stars in the U18 Trappers, right? Those guys could hear their name called in the 2018 OHL priority selection. They could get picked up by Junior A clubs really at any point. So yeah, go down there and support those guys, and then stick around and check out the Voodoos take on Cochrane on the Saturday. That's gonna be a good game, and we don't know where the Voodoos will be within that streak, but if they can take down Espanola, boy, that Friday game against Hearst, that's gonna be a heavyweight tilt.
Yeah, Hearst always ices a really good team. Going back to the Mark Lafleur days where they won the NOJHL championship. I remember watching them, and when Mark was here coaching the Voodoos for his one season that he coached, My first time actually meeting him face to face, I said to him, "I hated you so much in that Eastern Conference Finals in 2019 because they swept the Voodoos, but it didn't feel like a sweep because it was like a one goal
Right.
sweep. Like every game was like one goal or overtime.
Kind of like the battalion against Ottawa last year, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I said I couldn't stand you, and I couldn't stand your goalie. I don't remember his last name, but I'll always remember his, or I don't remember his first name, but I'll always remember his last name because of the impression he left on me on that series. It was Talarico. And doing the public address for those series, you get to kind of help choose the 3 stars, and he was like a star every single game. So it was
Yeah.
just absolutely ridiculous. But Hearst is always a good team, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, but they're the former Trappers organization. Really, if you follow the lineage,
That's
it gets a little
right.
bit it gets a little murky, but they are indeed the former Trappers. So I wonder if it feels like a homecoming of sorts to Chris. But they did take down Hearst the last time they played Hearst, which is crazy to say. It was almost a month ago. It was November 29th or October 29th that they took down Hearst up north, and that was kind of the beginning of this winning streak where they almost
Mhm.
felt like where they went up north and took all 3 games, and that was a big weekend for them as well. But with that being said, yeah, it's going to be a busy weekend in Powassan, but I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
absolutely. And I guess just to finish things off, the Nipissing Lakers, their home schedules are done for this semester. They've got a couple more road games over the next 2 weekends to wrap up the first half of their season. But that Nipissing Lakers women's team is silver medalist last year, and they might be even better this year. I mean, they are beating teams in close games. They are blowing a couple of teams out.
Yeah.
They have been really fun to watch, and now they're ranked fourth in the U Sports top 10 rankings. So yeah, they're the number 4 team in women's university hockey across the country. Darren Turcotte's just done an unbelievable job with that program, and they put together 3 straight shutouts as well to finish off what was a lengthy homestand. And both goalies contributing to that. So it's not like they're just getting, their, shutouts from their number 1 goalie. Both Chantal Sanquist and Chloe Marshall had a hand in shutting out the opposition over the last couple of weekends. So yeah, they're a tough team, and it's going to be fun to see them in the second half.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I got to get out to a Lakers game at some point this year because every single time that they play, there's like a Voodoos game going on
Yeah.
basically at the same time. So we have to kind of split up the crew a little bit to figure out what's going on. But with that being said, next weekend I'm really excited because we don't have to do a hockey game at all.
We get a weekend off. Can we just
Yeah,
tell people a little behind the scenes of how crazy it's been a little bit? And
absolutely.
we are actively looking. If people are listening to this and they think that this sounds like fun and they'd want to do it, please reach out. We're willing to train. There are a couple of paid positions as well. So if you have a passion for hockey or sports in general, if you have a passion just for making media content, reach out to us because we would love to hear from you. We would love to add you on to our growing team. And can't say enough thanks to guys like Andrew White and Drew Ferris and Lyndon Hoocamp who have really come on in the last couple of weeks and have really helped us out. But here's how crazy it's been for us the last couple of weeks. Derek and I were at the Lakers women's game on Friday. They had a 5 o'clock game. And then we were also going to call the men's game Friday night. Well, you got a call from the Voodoos saying we need you to fill in to be our PA announcer. And you were going to do the play-by-play with Ben Long. So all of a sudden, we have to split up the guys that are at the Lakers game. So they go down to having one commentator. So I drive down to Powassan so that they can have at least one commentator.
Yeah.
It's just it's stuff like that. It's just like, okay, thank God we all have cars and can get ourselves to places, first of all.
Yeah.
But yeah, can you imagine if like Derek was out of town or if Derek had a basketball game or something going on and I was the only guy at the Gardens? Like, yeah, it would have been a little hectic for the Voodoos to find someone to do their game. So Yeah, glad everything worked out. Glad it paid off. I was glad I was there for the game on Friday. It turned out to be an awesome game. And yeah, so if you're interested, hit us up. You can find us on our socials. Don't be shy. We all started at a point where I'll tell you my first ever broadcasting gig was on the sidelines for Friday Night Football on CKT, and really just talking to Dean Belanger about the weather conditions. Like that's how it really all started for me. So everybody starts somewhere, and like I said, we're I like to think we're a good group of guys. So we would love to have you guys on.
Yeah, it's been pretty hectic, especially with when you add the podcast, a weekly podcast into the mix too, which is really where we started with all of this. So you kind of have to keep the foundation strong with the podcast, but and it's a good way to kind of debrief and come back every week. But still, it is some work. Not that I'm trying to say, hey, come on and take over my podcast by any means, but yeah, we are definitely looking for people. And just on the note of starting somewhere, my first on-air experience was with Canador on the college radio station. And let me tell you, my first time going live on air, I was shaking in my boots. Didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do. And then a couple of years later, I got the chance to work with Tom Parisi and Bob Coles on the Battalion broadcast. And I was between the benches and I was shaking in my boots again, not knowing what to talk about. I remember the entire time watching the game being like, I don't know what to talk about. What are they going to throw to me? Like going into the game, you're like, yeah, I've watched some hockey. I know some hockey. Everything's cool. I'm a big Battalion fan. And then the second you get into that little between the benches area, all your knowledge is just gone. You're just like, yeah, it's cold down here beside the ice. So we all start somewhere, and we're willing to help you out and kind of give back some of our knowledge now that we're, I guess, quote unquote, grizzled vets of the industry now. We're still hopefully very far from the end of our broadcasting journeys, but yeah, we're looking to give back. One thing I did want to bring up though, and this is kind of a little bit childish of me, not necessarily childish, not hockey related. I didn't tell Matt what this is about. This is a personal thing for me. Up in my corner on my screen, I have a green Power Ranger helmet. And as a child, I was a little bit too young for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but my cousin would always bring it whenever he'd come up, and I get to watch it, and I fell in love with it over the years. And it is very corny. Power Rangers is definitely good for a good little laugh sometimes when you turn it on. And but I've only ever really been mystified by Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And this past weekend, we lost Jason David Frank, the original Green Power Ranger, and it's kind of near and dear to my heart. So I did just want to point out the Green Power Ranger helmet that I've always kind of had in my room hanging there. So I did want to bring that up and just say, thanks for the memories, Jason. Really appreciate you. And you're never going to hear this. It's just my silly little way to kind of mourn your loss a little bit, but I just wanted to bring that up. And now that we're on a downer, I think that's a good place to end this episode, Matt.
Man, Power Rangers, huge part of my childhood too. And yeah, the news was shocking, and he'll be missed.
He will be for sure. But anyways, we'll try and pep it up a little bit here on the end. Again, thanks to Josh Bloom and Alex Little for being good sports this week and joining myself and Matt Sookram on this episode of the Frontline. Tommy's Troops Trivia moving to a bi-weekly format, so we'll hear from Tommy next week. Again, it wasn't claimed, so come on out to the Battalion game. Tell me who our Battalion player to watch was on November 13th in the Kitchener Rangers game. That was the question that Tommy asked in the Troops Trivia, and we're going to give you a McDonald's value meal because of that. So, I mean, Tommy's pretty hyped. It's McDonald's. He loves his McDonald's, so he wants to give it away. He wants to help you out. So, Tommy's Troops Trivia will be back next week. Again, huge thank you as well to Mr. Matt Sookram for joining me once again as co-host for this week.
Always a pleasure.
Always is. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube, of course. Subscribe to the Frontline broadcast on there as well. That's where we broadcast all of our games. You can find us there. You can find us on social media. And with that being said, keep your eye on the Frontline.
The Frontline, hosted by Courtney Kenny, the official podcast of the North Bay Battalion.